Hey everybody, what's going on? Josh here, Morse Effects, and today I'm going to talk about why I need tracking inside Vegas Pro. Today I'm going to show you how to track an object one time and get multiple uses out of that track, all using the Mocha Vegas plugin. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, so I'm inside Vegas Pro, and on my timeline I have a clip of a car driving in the sand, and it's pretty cool. And what I want to do is add a license plate to the front of this car. And also, I want to add text above the car itself. And I could easily do this with the Mocha Vegas plugin. So in your Video Effects tab, go up to the top and you can search for Mocha Vegas. You'll find Mocha Vegas plugin, and you can click and drag and drop the default preset onto your clip. That's going to load your video event effects with Mocha Vegas on there. And to start our track, we're going to click the Launch Mocha UI button. This is going to load up Mocha Vegas. By default, it loads the Essential workspace. You can click and change this from Essentials to Classic, or to Big Picture, or to Roto. But by default, Essentials is all we need for this one. On the left-hand side, you'll see your layers, and then under that, you'll see your Essential buttons. On the bottom, you'll see your timeline, which you can drag and scrub through to find specific frames and to fine-tune things. You'll also see a lot of controls to play and track and add keyframes and whatnot. So to start our first track, let's go up to the top left and we'll see our selection of buttons under the menu bar. You have a couple of options on how to select the section of your footage that you want to track. And one of the most common ones people use is the pen tool, which creates an X-spline layer. You can click this and you can do some really cool custom tracking by clicking, and it does a really good job of tracking that. But depending on your scenario, that can be overkill for what you're trying to do. For this shot, I'm actually just trying to create a simple track. I'm not trying to mask out anything. The pen tool helps you get precise masks, but I just want a simple track. So I'm going to right click, and that stops the addition of new points, completing the layer, but I'm just going to delete this layer because I don't want to mask anything. I want to track this. So we simplify it just by selecting the box tool, and I'm going to draw over the front bumper entirely, and that's it. I want to track everything inside of this square. So just drawing a big old square over an object and tracking it isn't always going to work, because planar tracking means that anything that sits inside of the object that you drew has to have the same relative movement to the camera. Anything outside of that means it's not coplanar, and that actually can break your track very, very easily. We're getting away with this now because the car, it doesn't really shift in perspective that much. It's more just moving in and out. It turns just a little bit, but not enough to break the track. If you want to learn more about why tracks succeed and fail in coplanars and more about planar tracking, I highly recommend you check out the Intro to Planar Tracking video linked in the description below. So back on the left-hand side, we have our track motion options, which can allow you to make some really complex tracks. By default, it enables translate, scale, rotate, and skew, and perspective is disabled by default. I don't intend for my track to skew or to rotate. I just want to track the position and the scale. So I'm going to leave those two enabled. But if you do intend on doing corner pinning, you would at least want skew and usually perspective. But for this scenario with this car, there's not a lot of turning. So I'm only going to use translation and scale. Underneath these options, we have our track controls, which are a triangle with a gear on it pointing backwards, and that means it's going to track backwards. We can stop the tracking at any time by pressing the stop button. This double triangle button means we could track forwards and backwards with one click. So if I chose a spot on my footage here in the middle, if I clicked the track forwards and backwards button, it would start tracking all the way forwards first, and then once it got done, it would start tracking backwards from that point. Very convenient little button. And then we have the track forwards button, which only tracks forwards of where your cursor is. So I chose the very last frame and put my mask around the front of the bumper. So I'm just going to track backwards. You'll also see we have tracking buttons at the bottom here as well, where you can track one frame at a time. But I'm going to track everything. And it's done, which now if we scrub through, we'll see that my area that I selected is shrinking and growing very accurately. Even through all the bumps and the movements that are happening, that box is staying exactly where it needs to go. So let's bring it back to my last frame. Now over here on the left-hand side, we have our surface buttons right here, which is show surface, align surface, and show grid. We're only going to be checking show surface. And then once we do, we see a new little blue rectangle inside of our tracked area. This box serves a dual purpose. It is the representation of your tracking data. Your spline can be animated or moved to another part of the screen, and if it's coplanar, it will still give you perfect tracking data. To see what the tracking data is, you have to look at the surface. Also, this surface area acts as where your tracking data will be applied in Vegas Pro, showing you that visually. It has no keyframes, so you can move it around confidently, and it will just offset the tracking data that you just created. So you see how it's kind of like a really long rectangle right here? If I were to apply some media to it, it's going to be stretched to fit this square. So a pro tip is that I like to make sure this square is the same aspect ratio as my Vegas Pro project. And since I know my Vegas Pro project is an aspect ratio of 16:9, I can right click anywhere on this blue square and set the ratio to 16:9. And now when I apply media to it, it's going to look normal. If I make this too small, when I apply media to it, it's never going to exceed the dimensions of this square. So I'm thinking right about this size looks pretty good. You can get it close to the size you want, then right click and set the ratio back to 16:9, and now you're good to go. I'm going to position my license plate right in this vicinity, so if I center this square, it looks good to me. Now I'm going to scrub through, and that looks great. So at the top left, we see our layers area. I'm going to double click on layer 2 and rename it for organizational purposes. I'm going to call this one bumper. But before I exit Mocha Vegas, I told you earlier that I want to track text to this car as well, but I don't want to actually track this again. The cool thing is you can actually use the same track and duplicate it. So I have my bumper track selected. I'm going to right click and then I see duplicate or Control D. And I click that, and now I have a duplication of this track. Since I know I'm done with my bumper layer, I'm going to click it and go to the left and click the little eyeball to hide it so I don't accidentally adjust it. Then I'm going to go up to my copy, I'm going to rename it text. And now I'm going to scrub a little bit backwards and then scroll out with my mouse wheel to see what this full picture looks like. And I'm going to take my surface square and I'm going to drag that above the car. I'm going to increase it left and right. Looks pretty good. Right click, set the ratio to 16:9, and then position it right above the car. Awesome. So now when I apply text to this layer, it's going to appear right here. Let's see what the surface box looks like while I scrub through the footage now that I moved it. It looks awesome to me. And that's it. Hold Control S to save, and then you can close the Mocha Vegas window itself, and then there we go. Inside the matte group are all your parameters to adjust masks, but we're not masking anything in this tutorial, so I'm just going to collapse this matte group and move down to the tracking data group. If I open that up, we see some buttons and some parameters. The first button is create track data. I'm going to select that, and it's going to ask which layer do you want me to create this track data from. Let's start with the bumper. I'm going to choose the bumper and hit OK. And then within 1 second, it automatically created tracking data and put them into keyframes for us. Now let's apply this to a picture. I'm going to right click on the timeline and insert a video track. And now I'm going to add a license plate I created. Good old Texas Mocha Vegas. I'm going to trim this picture to match the video's length. And now I'm going to apply this tracking data to this license plate. I can easily do that by hitting the Apply Export button. That loads up Vegas Pro's motion tracking window, which tells you which event it's on. Currently, it's on the car event right here. Which mask it's selected, which is the Mocha mask, linked to the Mocha Vegas mask. It automatically presets the precision and mode, so they're unchangeable. And then down below here, we have two options. We have the motion track transfer, which allows us to click and drag this onto any piece of media we want. Or we have the drop down arrow, which shows all events that you can hover over, and it'll give you the option of how you want to apply this tracking data. So for the license plate picture, the way we're going to apply the tracking data is the picture-in-picture effect. It's going to transfer it from Mocha Vegas to picture-in-picture. And now, if we scrub through, we see our ginormous Texas license plate on the front of that car. But it's perfectly tracked. It's moving with every bounce. It's scaling perfect. Now, I know everything is bigger in Texas, but our license plate, I promise, they're the same size as everybody else's. So I'm going to shrink it. And you can easily do that by going over to your picture event. And I'm going to go to the pan crop. Now, I want to show you, if I zoom in, you'll see that the picture will never exceed the surface area's dimensions, like I was saying before. And that's why it's important to choose your surface area's dimensions wisely. But I'm not trying to increase it, I'm trying to decrease it. So over on the left-hand side, we will make sure lock aspect ratio and size about center are enabled. So when we drag a corner outward, it scales everything perfectly and keeps the aspect ratio. So I take that and then I click and I position it where I want. So now if I scrub through the timeline, that actually looks perfectly normal to me. And that's it. That's how easy it is to track and apply this data to a picture. Now, of course, this still looks artificial because this is a digital computer picture added onto a video itself, which has its own effects already applied. So we can very easily make this picture blend in and look like it belongs, all within video effects inside of Vegas. With my license plate layer selected, I'm going to go to the color grading tab, and then I'm going to go over to the utilities, and then I'm going to drag the exposure down a little bit. And then I'm going to go to the temperature, and I'm going to drag it a little bit to the left, and then move the tint a little bit magenta. I'm going to go over to the color wheels and drag the lift up, raising the shadows. And then I'm going to go to the gain and drag that bar down. So I'm reducing the highlights, and that's looking pretty good right there. But the secret sauce that I always like to use is in the video event effects. We search for levels. We go to the levels effect, and then we're going to choose computer RGB to studio RGB. Drag and drop that onto the license plate, and that legalizes the levels. And now it still looks a little sharp. We can search for blur, and I like the Gaussian or Gaussian blur, and then soften it up a little bit. And look at that. With just a couple of effects, this license plate actually looks like it belongs in this scene. Now, I highly recommend checking out Grant's Vegas Pro Essentials color correction, which I'll link in the description below. So now let's add the text above the car. I'm going to scrub a little bit backwards into my timeline so I can see a further view. I'm going to right click on the timeline and insert a new video track. Then I'm going to right click on that new video track and insert some text media. I might customize it a little bit, and let's just say level up. Control A to select all my text, change the font. I like impact, maybe scale it down a little bit and then italicize it. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to drag the text all the way back to the beginning so it starts when the video starts. And I'm going to trim it down to match the event length. So now it's the same length as my video. And now if I wanted to add this text above the car, I can go back to my video event effects on the track of the car itself, go to create track data, choose my text layer because I know it's above my bumper layer, hit OK. It creates a whole new set of values. Click apply export. That transfers all that data to the motion tracking inside Vegas Pro. And then I go down to my little two options down here. And this time I'm going to click and drag the motion track transfer button to show you what it does. I'm going to drag it onto my text, and it's going to tell me all the ways I can apply this data. I can do it through picture-in-picture effect or through location. If I choose location, it is going to move with the car, but it's not going to apply any of the scaling. So I'm going to choose add to picture-in-picture. And now if I drag and scrub through my timeline, my level up text zooms in and scales just like it should. You can even go further and make some new text and transition between them by copy and pasting this now fully tracked text event. So I can right click on the timeline and insert a new video track, and then I can click on my text layer and hold control and drag it up, and that duplicates it. And I want to create a new copy and not a reference, so I'm going to check the top button, hit OK, and now I have a copy of level up. So I can click the generated media button to change the text, your tracking. And now if I mute this track, we see that your tracking is also where it's supposed to be. So I want to add a couple of cool transitions to these texts. So I'm going to start where I want level up to enter. Right about here looks pretty good. I'm going to select the level up layer, split the clip. Let me unmute it to show you real quick. And the reason I split it is because if you trim it, it adjusts the keyframes. But if you split the clip, the keyframes stay in place where they need to be. So I'm going to delete the first part, and maybe about halfway through, we'll have a transition to your tracking. So I'll click the level up layer again, press S to split it, delete the last part. And now let's say I want this transition between these words to be about 8 frames. So I'm going to click and drag over, and we see that now 8 frames has been selected. I'm going to click and hit S to split it and delete the first half. I can drag this text down and it's overlapping, and we now see that it's going to transition from one text to the other. By default, it's going to fade, and that's pretty cool, but I really like continuum transitions, so I like swish pan. I'm going to throw a swish pan left on here, move that down to about 8 frames, and then drag and drop onto the middle transition. So now, if I play it, it looks super awesome to me. And that's going to wrap it up for this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Mocha Vegas and what you're going to be creating using this powerful tool. Also, if you want to learn more about tracking in general, check out the Mocha Essentials. That'll teach you all about planar tracking, which objects to track, and multiple things like that, and how to use all these awesome tools. It's all going to be linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you in the next video.